there's this tool in the Unity package manager called ProGrids and ProBuilder that you can use to make levels for your games. I personally really like this tool. You can go to Window, to Package Manager, and you want to find this thing called ProBuilder here. You can install it by hitting this button here. Mine says remove because I already have it in the project, but you can add it yourself. The other one, ProGrids, however, won't show up unless you enable preview packages. And once preview packages shows up, it will show ProGrids. A quick overview of what ProGrids is. Up right here, the top, this number on the ProGrids menu thing shows how far you want the cube to move on the grid. Okay, I made the background a little darker so you could see the lines better. These lines are the grid. This is like the visualizer for the grid that all the cubes move on. And you'll see, without this lock, that it just follows this little grid as an object, and it's very nice. Once you do turn this little snapping thing on, I guess the grid moves with the cube. I don't really get how you could use that. It honestly doesn't feel very good to me to have that on when you are making something special. But just know that you can turn that on in case you need it. This button disables the grid visualizer. This off and on switch turns off the grid, so you can still see the grid if you have it on, and you can just move the cube any way you'd want to. You can change how the snapping works. If you click on this 1, you can change it to a small value like 0.5, where you move the cube every half block. Or you can change it to anything smaller than that, or bigger than that, like 2, where you're going by every 2 blocks, which is too much for a cube this small, by the way. I personally like to keep it on 0.1 for 0.1 accuracy. So let's say that I have an object that is on a grid. You see that he's not exactly centered on the grid. If you click this button, it will center him on the grid. It's very simple. Then we have these buttons, which are X, Y, and Z. You can obviously tell what happens when you press on them. X gives you the X grid, Y gives you a Y grid, and Z gives you a Z grid. Basic stuff. I like keeping it on Y because a horizontal grid is the best kind of grid in the first place. If you, for some reason, want to have a grid like that is 3D, you have the opportunity to see all 3 directions at once. I prefer the flatline grid. So that's a quick overview of what ProGrids does. One thing you should note about ProGrids is that if you go into the project settings panel, there is more stuff you can change here that might be nice for you, potentially. And that's your information that you might like. The next one is ProBuilder. When you first import it, it'll look like this, with this weird thing. Recently, about 8 months ago, there was a channel called Dapper Dino, which keeps it on floating window mode and puts it in icon mode and moves it to sit like this. And I think that's perfectly fine. You can do that, but you can actually attach it to the side of the hierarchy and move it like that. So it's just sitting there. So it's there, but it's not floating above the ProGrids window, and it's easier to just get around to, and you can move it wherever you'd like. It's just generally a better way to keep it docked to the screen. In the current version of probuilder, you have the ability to create a new object, a new probuilder cube, by clicking on this new shape tool. This will create a cube for you that you can immediately start changing and stuff. It's good. I do like that ability. But if you hold Alt and you click on it, it'll create a new shape tool window that you can now create little quick and easy cubes this way. You can go around and check out all the different types of extra blocks that you have. Unity normally just comes with a cube and like a cylinder and a sphere and a circle thingy and a plane and a quad. Your basic stuff that you would expect, but probuilder just kind of adds upon those, and you can also like make custom ones with code. I mean, I guess custom is a good way to get a quad. Okay, I was wondering where quad was. Dapper showed off this little polygon tool where if you click on it and you click somewhere on the grids, you can now create little easy shapes that are weird and stuff, and also kind of cool. You just click on the final area and it will bring you this little thing that goes up and down. I don't know what you would call this kind of effect, but like you can make a cube and stuff. If for some reason you want to change that back to a plane, you can just take the top and bring it down. It's very good. Something I'd like to point out though, if you click on this little cube object and you like shaped it weirdly, it would start stretching the texture in a weird way. So you see that the cube is stretching here, and that's not very good looking. One thing that I should say is that that is an obvious behavior that you're just overlooking. If you click on this little face selection button, and you select two faces, then stretching will actually work. If you hold shift with the scaling tool, it will basically extrude out those edges, and you can do special things with it, like continue the weird look by just scaling that up. I've made a weird looking anvil shape, or a something. I don't know what this would be. So that's one thing you should note, that you can actually do that. Same goes for rotation. You can rotate the faces in their own way. One thing the YouTuber Dapper did not show off was that you could actually click on this button here, which is called the material editor. Just comes up with these materials. You can just make a new material and drop it in. And when you click on a face and then choose a material, that face will become that material. You can then like decorate your weird block that you just made with new colors. So that actually looks better. That's a really dark color of black. I was not meaning for it to be that dark. That's better. You can actually change the UVs of certain faces and objects and stuff, like you would want to do in Blender and stuff. You can take a screen, you can render out this little place so you can make a texture in Photoshop and do whatever you'd want to, like you would in Blender. I personally have never used this, so I can't really show it in action, but I do want you to know it's there. One more thing I need to point out is that if you select an object which has a if you select a face which has a material and you extrude from that face, the new faces generated will be of that material. So you have a bit of consistency with what you get here. It's very nice, to be honest. Here's a little bit of extra information on selections. if you left click on a mesh, it will bring you into edit mode if you have one of these three selected, and you're able to do things with it, like move it left or move it right. If you hold shift when left clicking somewhere, you'll go into multi-select mode, which just selects multiple faces, and you can move based on those multiple faces and do everything you would do normally with those normal faces. So you could just like grab parts of a mesh, like the side, these two sides. I can then hold shift and extrude, and it would extrude both of these out. So that's definitely very good news. I would also like to point out the fact that you can actually invert faces in probuilder. So if you're creating an interior of a room, instead of creating this really weird box of things like Dapper Dino was showing, you can instead make a cube outline of a room that you're trying to make very quickly, and then you can just double click on it to select all, and then there's this button here called flip face normals. Apparently you can also hit Alt and N, and that might help. I don't trust the button myself. When you click on it, it will flip the normals. It will look very strange if you don't delete the directional light that comes in your scene by default. That's why this looks so weird, because I have a directional light in there. This room is basically just the same as what I've just showed you with this thing here. I basically just selected everything and then hit the black button. These little squares are their own little objects because, like, I was trying to figure that out. I need to undelete the light real quick. Okay, so coming back to this little cube here, if you go into like edge select mode, you can actually choose to bevel edges somewhere. There's a button here called bevel, and it will create these little very nice looking edges. Instead of having it all square and gross looking, you can bevel the edges and it makes it look a lot nicer. So that's one way to make your scene just a tiny bit nicer if you truly want that. Like, a lot of what you would expect to be able to do in Blender, you can also do in probuilder. Like, for example, if I went back into this cube here, I could then select one face, and there's a button for deleting a face, which will just delete the face, and that's like one way to make a portal into another room or something. If you go back into little edge selection mode, you can select two edges, and then you can just go in here and click. You can click the bridge button, and it will create you a new little section. Something you might not have also noticed is that there's an export button. There's this button here called export that you can use to turn a probuilder cube into an object file, and then you can open that in Blender and make a better scene in Blender if you truly wanted to. That's one really nice feature that you might have been missing if you weren't playing with this. Something I didn't know is that you could actually subdivide the edges that you have selected. So if you don't want to subdivide the whole object, you can just subdivide your selection. That's nice to know. Would have been nice to know of it earlier, but I guess I'm even learning from me telling you about these things. We have a lot of features that could be very useful to us here on this episode of whatever this is. And if you really wanted an extra level of just like building a little room that makes it look really nice, you can just modify where the little vertice edge corners are. I think moving it will make it better. I would say if you did want to like make a very nice looking edge that's not too far apart, just change snap to 0.1, and you can move it just very tiny increments, and it's very good. So that's great. One thing I would like to point out though is that if you have a normal game object in the scene alongside the probuilder objects, your little hand thing is going to disappear. You won't be able to use any of your tools because you have the edit mode selected. The only way to get yourself back into normal is to go into object mode, which is your normal mode selection, and then you'll have your little moving tools again, and you can do all that great stuff and stuff. Very, very, very nice, I would say. Not only is there a bunch of really cool tools you can use in this little bar over here, you can also go into the tools and probuilder, and there's some really, really nice special things you can do in here, like this probuilderize button. So if you make a normal cube, you can click the probuilderize, and now whatever object you had selected can be edited like in probuilder. This reminds me, if you are moving to the lightweight render pipeline, or you're already on the lightweight render pipeline, you'll run into some problems, like no texture appearing, potentially. And that can really be fixed if you just go here and you upgrade the project materials to the lightweight render pipeline. A manual way to convert a material to the lightweight render pipeline is to just click on lightweight render pipeline, hit like lit, and you're good. There we go. I fixed it. If you're starting by default on the lightweight render pipeline type of project, it will not default to this texture. It will default to the normal Unity texture, which is no texture at all. And I can easily show you how that looks. Just click on it and click delete. It's just gonna look like this, to be honest. And I don't think you want that. Maybe you do. Maybe you do. There's some extra special things that will probably help you out. You can export to different types of objects somehow, and that might help somehow. There are some secret buttons. There's some secret options you can change if you go into the Edit Preferences window, then the probuilder tab. It has some special things that you don't really need to get into. You can change the default material here. So if you want that really to just be probuilder default, this one, I think. I don't know which one it is. I'll say it's that one, since it changed some. I guess you can have tooltips and stuff, but that's your in-depth look at probuilder. I feel like that might have been a better representation of the tool here than what Dapper Dino was trying to show off. Of course, I'm missing stuff myself because I'm still learning how to build worlds in Unity. But that gives you your basic ideas of what you can do in probuilder. myself a working guy. I'm attached the material editor there, so it's not just floating in my face. So with my little custom, I don't know what you would call him, first-person controller in the scene, you can just make a walk through the world. This place is just a tiny bit too big. That's a weird curve, and I can fix it because it's eating up the floor space. But it's not always bad to eat up floor space. You're purposefully trying to make someone feel claustrophobic. Eating floor space could help. Oh no, you're joking. I got stuck in the wall, which means I didn't fix the wall stick. It was shell offset. Set it to 0.1 or more if you get stuck in a wall. I'll set it to 0.1. And let's try to get stuck in a wall again. So let's run, and we're not stuck. You're good. Yeah, perfecto. Thank you for watching this very weird video. Just wanted to clear up some confusion in case you had some from Dapper Dino's confusing video. Thanks for watching, and I mean no hate to Dapper Dino. I'm just pointing out that you can do a lot more than what was